We are live. Welcome, everybody. Handgun Radio in the morning. Hello, and welcome to Handgun Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Machat from the wild woods of central Maine, and this is your home for all the news, information, and discussion in the handgunning world. This week, we chat with Dave from Just an Opinion channel about some recent guns that he shot. So, as always, Handgun Radio is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. Please check out the Patriot Patch Company for their awesome patches and other high-quality items. Visit patriotpatch.co for more information. They got some really cool artist proof renditions coming along with the latest Patch of the Month patches. And Dave, pretty sure I saw you have a T-shirt now.
I do, yeah, I do. It's strictly a ego stroking exercise on my part. Yeah, no, I reached out to Jake at one point. He said, "Hey, so just out of curiosity, well, how much would it cost to actually, have T-shirts available?" And he said, "Well, here's the different ways we can do it, and blah blah blah." So the bottom line is, I opted for the way where basically I don't make any money at all, but there's T-shirts available. I thought that was the best way to go. So
those are awesome. Yeah, I saw that link that you shared. So patriotpatch.co, they have T-shirts, cleaning mats, patches, everything else, and you can join the ultra cool Patch of the Month club as well.
And, I love that. I love the Patch of the Month.
And as always, shop Amazon using our affiliate link, firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. And please help support Handgun Radio. Head over to firearmsradio.tv/pledge and click on HGR. There are a bunch of different pledge levels over there, and we really appreciate it. So, Dave, it's been a while. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you, Ryan?
Oh, not too bad. Chatting with you here on a Sunday morning because Mr. Weird is on assignment. Decided to leave us for a weekend or so. But yeah, so there will be no drink segment this week, much to the disappointment of some listeners. So we were talking. It's black coffee.
That's right. I'm opting for the flavored creamer. So I suppose that was our drink segment.
Perfect. There we go. Easiest kind of coffee to make. Throw the little thing in the Keurig, and that's it.
That's it.
So yeah, this week in review, I didn't really do too much. Played gigs. That's basically my entire summer. It's kind of wrapping up here as we get towards the end of the summer, but so hopefully, I know the releases of the show have been a little bit sporadic here and there as stuff has come up. So I apologize for that, but we will, as wintertime rolls around, we'll probably be getting back on our regular weekly release schedule like we always are. But at least try to push them out at least once a week. May not be the same day every week, but still trying to do that. Dave, what'd you do this week?
Well, mostly, of course, as most people know, I have the real job, and then then you squeeze the fun stuff in where you can. But this week I have managed to get some video shot for a couple of new things, and I also was able to get the drive and got it partially washed last night before the thunderstorms came rolling in and made me stop. But yeah, most excitingly, I got a hold of a couple of new handguns that are literally brand new on the market, and so it's always kind of fun to share new stuff right away.
Yeah, I've seen some of the posts you've been making. I was like, oh man, this is going to be fun. I want to talk about some of these. So yeah, weather hasn't been too great up this way either. Honestly, it's been a little bit, very, very humid, and now today it looks very dreary out, but it's not raining.
Yeah, same here. And we're not too far apart. I mean, further apart than some people might think. But you're up in Maine and I'm in Delaware, so
yeah, we're about 6 hours 6 hour drive or so.
Yeah, probably more than that.
I'm trying to be an optimist here.
Yeah, it takes 2 hours just to get around New York City. Come on.
That's true. Google Maps lies to me. All right, perfect. Well, we're going to talk about some of those guns you've been shooting. So with that, we'll head right into the main topic and get right to it. So I sent you the show notes. You listed off a bunch of different guns you've been shooting. Some of the ones I'd seen, some of them I had missed. So I'll let you talk about them. But the first one, and we're not strictly talking about handguns here because you do get to shoot some other stuff. And if it's a pistol caliber or something, whatever. The Uberti Winchester 1873 from Taylor's.
Yeah, that was real interesting in that, and you're right, it's handgun radio, and so I certainly don't want to digress the topic too much, but as you said, there is a caveat in that it is a hand 357 Magnum was the chambering for this particular one that I did the review, and of course that means you can also shoot 38 special, which makes it even more fun. Uh, so I did have the opportunity to get the Winchester 1873. And for those not familiar, Taylor's and Company is a United States company that imports and sells these guns. And when you say replica, a lot of times that conjures immediately up it's not, it's something not real about it, or it's a mock-up, or it's a poor quality. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, these things they're made by a company called Uberti in Italy, and they are craftsmen, and they are beautiful works of art that you can shoot. And that's always a good thing. So anyway, I got a hold of one of those to review, and had a great time doing it. And what made this particular video fun, ultimately, to produce, was that while I was doing it, I was thinking same thing. We talked about the fact that this is handgun radio, and now we're mentioning a long gun, and my forte is really handguns, and I'm no stranger to the longer guns, but I'm no expert either. And I try to understand where I am, and I'm not an expert. And so I said, well, somebody who knows a lot more than me, to say something about this gun's history that can do it with better authority. And the name that immediately came to my mind was Ashley Hlebinsky. And for those of you who know, Ashley is the curator of the Cody Firearms Museum at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, and they don't come much more authoritative than that on
Yeah,
history
she
of
knows her
guns.
stuff.
She does, yeah. So I reached out to Ashley. I said, "Hey, would you be interested in giving me some highbrow stuff, on the gun?" And she said, "Sure." So she cut me some video that I edited in. So that actually will be public this coming week, scheduled for Thursday. Um, that people will be able to watch that and see Ashley's cameo in that.
Now, did it have any, like, I know some of them come with like the short stroke levers and modifications like that. Was it at all modified for like cowboy action shooting, or is it just a base stock model?
Now, this was just, to my knowledge, just base stock. I've never shot an actual, authentic Winchester 1873, but my understanding is that this is made exactly from those prints and specifications, and so the action was uh, authentic action, which I found, was funny because oh man, how am I gonna stand in front of a camera with this thing and not look like a complete idiot? Because this requires some, dexterity and skill. And I was amazed in that, and let me know too if you've ever, shot lever actions much. But I was amazed how quick it is to get fairly proficient with.
Yeah, I've shot like 30-30s and stuff like that, but the one I have a lot of experience with is my friend's Henry Golden Boy 22. And
Hmm.
that thing, I mean, the lever throw doesn't have to be very long to kick a 22 shell out and work the action. So I mean, you can sit there and just
Right.
ping, 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 ping. It's like
Yep.
like a semi-auto almost.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fun. It's actually fun because you become the timing element in the action, and it's really kind of fun. And what I found for unlike a 22, the 357 or 38, you do have to give it a little bit of elbow grease, on the lever to
Right.
work it smoothly. And what I found that I had to overcome to get good at it was the fear that I'm gonna, I'm or I'm throwing it too hard, or I'm gonna damage it in some way. It's like, no, that's how you got to do it. You
Yeah,
got
you
to
ain't gonna break it.
exactly. And once I got over that, sort of, babying it, then that's when I started to get fairly proficient at it. But no means by no means will you see me out shooting cowboy action. I'm not that proficient by any means.
Abe's listening in the chat. He says he uses a Uberti 1873 357 for cowboy action shooting. He said he loves it. He has his slicked up, and they're really, really great when they're slicked up a little bit.
Nice.
If you keep
Very
it, you should
nice.
send it off and have somebody work on
That would be fun.
it. That would be, yeah, that would be, man. Those things. There's a few companies I think that specialize in doing all, like, do the action work on the Colt revolvers and stuff, or not Colt, but the cowboy action revolvers and whatnot. And I
Mhm.
believe they do the long guns too. So that would be the way to go, man. Imagine it's fast now. Imagine how fast it would be then.
Yeah. Yeah. And the action is actually fairly simplistic. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, but mechanically, it's not that intricate or complicated. So I would imagine that that there's a lot that could be done to really smooth it up and lighten it up.
Well, the best part is you can use loads that might not cycle like a semi. I mean, not that you would use them in a semi-auto with a rimmed cartridge like that, but you can
Right.
basically go as low as you possibly safely can without having the bullet get stuck in the barrel. But I mean, you could make some really, really light cowboy action loads. That gun's not even going to move.
Yeah, exactly. Like a BB gun.
Yeah. So the Walther CCP M2. I haven't had a chance to see one of these in person. I haven't had a chance to handle. I mean, I handled the old one, but I
Hmm.
have not had a chance to handle this new one or even really see it.
Yeah. That was one where I actually had an opportunity to Walther reached out and asked me if I would like to have an early copy to look at before they released it, and I said sure. I almost never say no to guns, and so I did get an opportunity to work with it and have a review ready when their release date came, and I have the original CCP and have had it for quite some time, and there was a lot I like. Now I know that some people had trouble with triggers. They felt the trigger was very gritty or they had problems with it. I didn't have that experience with my original. I thought the trigger was fine. I thought it was a little bit long, but it's designed to be a carry gun, so I don't mind a long trigger on a carry gun. Um, but what I absolutely hated was the takedown and reassembly, for field stripping. It was horrible, and on any modern firearm, I'm immediately annoyed when I find out you have to use a tool to
Right.
disassemble, and it's like, come on now, we're not talking about some World War I vintage firearm where this is something made today. There's no way you should have to have a tool to disassemble it. So I was annoyed with that, and it was really really difficult. And of course, being difficult, you didn't do very often, and so you never got good at it. Was my issue. So I put it right up there with the Ruger Mark II in guns that are fun to disassemble and clean. And obviously, I was not alone. That was probably the biggest complaint against that gun. Um, I actually remember a Hickok 45 video on it where he said he was tempted to throw it in the river or something similar to that. So for him to express that frustration made it pretty
Enough for
clear.
them to like redesign it so you don't have to use one.
Yeah. So they did, to their credit, they had their ear to the marketplace and they said, okay, guys, people don't like this. Let's fix it. And so they did. And what they've done is they've made it uh, disassemble without tools, and they did a good job of doing that. The mechanism that they employ now is very simple and very effective. I also don't see it wearing out or anything like that. Probably even less likely to wear out than the one that required the tool.
It
I
looks
don't
like
think
there's a
they
little
really changed
switch,
much
isn't it?
else. What's that?
Looks like it's a little switch, isn't it?
It is. It's what it is there's a spring loaded piece in the back that you just literally push in with your index finger. And once you've pushed it in just enough to take the tension off of it, there's a little slide switch, for lack of a better description, that you slide from left to right. And that releases the catch on that. And then you just let it pop out, which unlatches it. And then you're able to pop the slide off. And when you put it back, it's simply a reverse of that process. But it used to be the hook inside that you had to, you had to hold your tongue just right and get the right piece on that hook while trying to keep the gas piston in the little hole that it goes into. And then, it was a nightmare.
So there's no danger
Much
of
improved.
inadvertent disassembly or anything like that, though.
No, none whatsoever. No.
Okay. That was the only thing I was curious about because I know, I mean, looking at it though, it looks pretty slick here.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, for all intents and purposes, the same gun. I couldn't really see anything else that they changed other than that. But that was enough. That was enough to make it definitely different.
They definitely, I mean, they did a good job too when they went because the original PPS, not the CCP, we're talking about the PPS here, but was kind of a clunker. And when they updated that, they really did a good job. So I mean, hopefully this solves everybody's complaints about this gun because it seems like a good pistol. It's just that, like I said, when I first picked it up, I'm like, really, you need a tool to disassemble this thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that in all these videos that Dave has done are linked in the show notes. Make sure you go over and check those out as well. The Taurus G2C.
That was fairly recent, and I think the gun itself is relatively new by that name at least. And that was because I got a lot of requests. I've been getting a lot of requests on the channel to do Taurus videos and to review some Tauruses, and I've overlooked them a lot for no particular reason. I don't have any bias against their guns or anything, but it was just never anything I had in the forethought to go get. So I did make it an effort, and I said, well, let me go get this Taurus G2C. It's the replacement for the PT-111 basically in the double stack 9 millimeter. And I was very pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised because I didn't have too much expectation one way or the other. But Taurus gets a rap. There's no doubt about it. They have a reputation for being among um, the less reliable and less quality oriented firearms. And I didn't find I didn't find anything in this pistol to make me feel that way about it. The only thing I'll say is that the trigger is not the nicest trigger. The trigger is a little on the gritty and heavy side, more so than I think needs be. But that aside, I liked it. Had a good time with it, and it'll probably stay in rotation. It's a good gun to compare to some others, and most importantly, it's an affordable gun. It's a budget gun.
Yeah, Bud's Gun Shop right now, $209.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I try real hard not to be any kind of a snob one way or the other because I think there are people who are snobs against high price guns, just like there are people who snobs, against low price guns. And but I do gravitate toward the higher priced gun where my personal interest tends to lie. And so I try to make an effort to remember it's like, a lot of the viewing audience out there is, they don't live and breathe guns like we do.
Right.
And a gun to them is a necessary expense that's going to take money from someplace else in their budget. That might be, can I afford the car payment and this gun I have to buy this month type of situation. And so, it's really a good idea to continue to look more at some of these budget friendly options and out are they up to the challenge of competing with some of the bigger names that cost a lot more because of the marketing budget and things like that. So it's not always quality that makes a gun expensive. Sometimes it's all the other overhead that company's carrying along with it.
Right. And I mean, Taurus has gotten better over the years as well. People back in the day, Taurus was all crap guns and this, that, and the other thing. But I mean, I've shot quite a few, especially from recent times, and they've been just fine. I mean, hell, I got that little PT-22 Poly, and that thing just runs and runs and runs. You got to try one of those out.
I will definitely put that on my list.
Yeah, I think you'd like that. It's a neat little 22 tip up, and the grip is very hand filling. So it's a small gun, but it doesn't feel like you're shooting a small gun.
Hmm. Well, and the other huge dawned on me when I was, because I buy, 99% of what you see me review on my channel. I own it. I bought it, and I bought it over the counter. So there's certainly a lot of expense in doing that. And maybe I'm onto something here with reviewing these budget guns, because I can review a lot more of them for the same budget myself.
Now, the one that I was really interested in hearing about, because I got to handle one of these a couple times. I haven't got to shoot one yet, but I did like it. Was the M&P Shield 380 EZ.
Hmm.
The grip safety. At first, I was kind of like, great. I'm not a big fan.
Yep. Yep.
However, it pivots at the bottom, right? That's
Correct. Yep.
so that immediately made it a prefer. If I'm going to have it, that's the way I want it, because it reminds me of my old Colt 1903 that I had. And it kind of reminds me of, well, a 1908 Colt, the modern day 1908 Colt. It's a smaller size, but it's polymer framed. 380, holds a bunch of rounds. What did you think of it?
I was very pleasantly surprised, and this time I will say surprised, because I'm one of those. This is where the snob in me did come out. As soon as I saw the advertising on the 380 EZ, I scoffed at it instantly, because it's like, no, you didn't really put the big capital letters EZ into the product name, did you? you know, so that was, to me, that was just a marketing turnoff. I just
Flashbacks
thought,
of Grip Zone.
and even worse, it's just like, oh my God, if I buy two, do I also get the Ginsu knives? Or, are there going to be commercials for this on late night TV?
The Ronco Smith & Wesson shield.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was exactly what popped into my mind with, oh, that's just a horrible name. And turns out, what do I know? Because I think that name probably is catching the attention of the market they intend. So, good for them. I was in the gun store one day doing other business, and one of the employees was like, "Hey, have you checked out the 380Es?" Something like, "No." And he said, "Well, no, seriously, you gotta just pick it up and feel it anyway, feel the trigger and all that." So he handed me one out of the case, and I racked the slide, and I said, "Wow, that really is light to rack. I mean, compared to a lot of them that claim to be and aren't so much." And then I pulled the trigger, and I was almost astonished. It's like, wow, this is an M. This bears the M&P logo, and it feels like this. And so I dry fired it for a little while, and I said, hmm. I said, well, there's no point in putting this back in the case. Let's let's take it home.
The thing that I didn't pick up on when I first saw pictures of it, but I saw it when I handled it, they kind of did the HK VP9 sort of thing on the back end of the slide there. The serrations, that last one on the end protrudes
Yeah,
out a bit.
yeah. They did, but they kind of said to HK, that's like, okay, we'll see your cocking tabs, and we'll raise you one, because we'll see them right into the slide.
And they're not as
And that's
pronounced.
what yeah, they're not as pronounced, but they're every bit as grippy, because you have that fish scale texture on the rear
Right.
cocking serrations on the M&P, and it's that exact same texture, just literally raised out, from the side a little bit, for that last one serration, and it works. It's very effective.
The
And
grip frame looks
what
a
I
little straighter too.
yeah, yeah, it is, and it's a very thin gun, because if I have any question goes up a little bit about it in one respect still, it's that, why did you still make it a single stack 380, and it's such a good sized gun, because it's a much bigger gun than most 380s.
Yes.
And it's like, so you've already decided to make it, it's got a long barrel. I mean, it's a good size, slide on this thing, and it's fairly, why not make it you've done your other shields, like the 9 shield, where it's not a full double stack, but it, staggers, and maybe get 12 rounds in this thing or so, um, but
Well, you've almost got
so
a
that's my
4-inch
only,
barrel.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not a pocket gun by any means. It certainly could be a carry gun. It absolutely is small enough for inside the waistband carry. But again, it's borderline on the tall, where from the top of the rear sight to the magazine base plate is a fair distance. I don't remember offhand, but I'm guessing it's in the 5-inch range at least. So it's a fairly tall gun, and those who carry inside the waistband, you're going to print. So that's an important dimension. But but it's and for those who don't know, it's a hammer fired gun, and that's the magic. That's why the trigger is so different. That's why the trigger is so crisp and nice, and not a jointed trigger. It's a one piece trigger, um, because
I'm,
it's an internal hammer.
I'm pretty
That's
sure they base
also
most
why
of
the
it
slides.
off their 22, the M&P
Yeah.
22.
Yep. Yep. And that's why the slide is so long too, because that last inch is just a housing for that internal trigger to swing, basically. Um, but the neat thing about it too is you mentioned the grip safety earlier, and it's very unobtrusive. It is, from a tactile perspective, becomes invisible. You don't feel it there. You're not aware of it, and it operates nice. But the other thing is, mechanically, that grip safety not only removes the block on the trigger, but it also actuates the firing pin safety block up in the slide.
Oh,
So what that means is, just gripping the gun has actuated or disengaged the firing pin safety block, which means your trigger does not have to do that. That is where 99% of the grittiness in polymer framed handguns comes from in the trigger. Is as you stroke that trigger, you're disengaging that safety up in the slide, and
little
and
lever
depending
you
on
pull.
how, yep, designing it, or that particular copy might be, you're going to feel that grittiness, and you're going to get a little extra weight in your pull and all that. Not the case with this gun. So the trigger is really very, very nice.
Yeah, I got to try one of these out. This is the modern day Colt 1908. It really is.
It is, and it's a well priced gun. I think they've, and my local gun store tells me they can't keep them, in on the shelf. They just fly off the shelf. So, um, and they're, for what they're targeting, the market, with people that are going to have challenges racking the slide on a semi-auto due to age, injury, or illness, whatever the case might be. Um, this is a good gun for that. Now the downside is it's still 380, but hey, if you get the right ammo for it, that's still, I'm not going to stand in front of one. So
Well, if you can pump out 380 rounds damn fast, I mean, the gun doesn't move or something.
right, and to be honest, this is a market that the people who don't buy this gun are probably going to buy a 22, because that's the only other gun they can handle.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't advise someone to carry a 22, but if that's what they're going to carry, I'd rather have them that throw in a rock or a sharp stick. And if
Right.
you
Yeah. If
sure
your
enough,
if your choice is this, or a pointed stick, then this is a nice alternative.
I mean, you dump 10 rounds into somebody's chest, I don't think they're going to be talking about what caliber it is.
Right. No,
You
absolutely.
know, I mean, it's not something that I wouldn't stand in front of it, like you said.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
So I went from being a naysayer to being a kind of a fanboy. So so good for them.
now you're gonna get emails accusing you of being a Smith and Wesson fanboy.
That's me. I'm a shill. Yeah.
Well, fanboyism is going to move into this next one here because I like this gun. I like the looks of it. The Langdon Beretta 92 Elite LTT. Now, you said you had this one loaned to you by a viewer. What did you think of that?
Oh, it's amazing. It's wonderful. I have the Beretta 92, Brigadier Tactical, made by Wilson Combat. So I did have expectations, and I certainly did have something to compare it to. Um, and it's every bit as good. If I did a head to head, which I didn't, but it would have been hard to draw many differences. It's Ernest Langdon, for those who don't know, is a gunsmith who basically has built his career on the work he does with Berettas, and specifically Beretta triggers. He just takes that trigger, which arguably out of the I mean, you just go buy any random Beretta 92 off the factory line, and that may be one of the most god awful double action, single action triggers ever made. He makes it just feel like butter, and it's incredible. So I was, and I also want to just give kudos and thanks to the viewer that loaned it to me, who was also a patron of the channel, and he reached out and said, "Hey, I got this brand new gun coming in. Do you want to borrow it and do a review with it?" I was like, "Wow, yeah." So for somebody who doesn't know you personally at all, to loan you their brand new gun, and he had a 2-digit serial number,
Oh wow.
less than a 2-digit serial number below 20 on this gun, um, and sent it right out for me to review. So that was quite awesome. But yeah, it's an excellent gun, and it's not cheap. It's 1,100 and some odd dollars, if you paid MSRP. But that, if you think about that price, that's really not for this gun, for a gun like that, with that kind of a custom trigger job and all the other amenities it has, fantastic sights and grips, and fit and finish is exemplary. $1,100 is not really a bad price at all.
Well, I mean, and admittedly, I mean, I'm not a huge. I don't have a lot of experience with Berettas. I've handled the stock 92s, and I remember being like, "Man, this thing is huge." I didn't realize how big they were.
Uh-huh.
And how do the grips on this? Do they make it feel any
It's
thinner?
got Yeah, they do. They have very thin grips. In fact, I'll make another comparison to Wilson Combat. Wilson Combat has the 92 Centurion, which is sort of a slightly shorter barrel and a thinner slide version. And one of the things they touted was that their G10 grips, were like thin, grips in the world, and these are very comparable to that. And I measured the two of them, and forgive me, but I can't remember now which one was thinner, but one of them was thinner by only 30 thousandths.
Oh wow.
And that's the whole grip, was only 30 thousandths difference between from one gun to the other. So for all intents and purposes, they're the same. And it really does make a big difference. It almost makes it feel like a 1911 instead of that round, Beretta.
I love that front sight too. I'm looking at it on the Langdon Tactical page. That red
Ameriglow,
dot.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
I'm
Ameriglow.
sure that lights right up once you start getting into some ambient light outside.
Yeah, it does. I've become a real big fan of those are the Ameriglow. Pleased to see, and I just said this recently. I'm pleased to see that Ameriglow is kind of hit the main stage. There are a lot of they're OEM on a lot of handguns now, where they used to be kind of a only people who knew about them company.
Right.
But it's nice to see good companies that make a good product get that success. So I'm happy about that. But I love those sights and the sight picture. Some people prefer orange, some people prefer that yellow, green, or whatever. But just that glowing ring on the front sight with that tritium vial in the center, for nighttime, and then that blacked out rear is a sight picture that I'm really becoming a huge fan of.
So you've been working on the Bob Marvel prototype. You finally finished that.
I did finally finish it, and it was one of those things where, so you're a musician. I don't know if you've ever dabbled in writing anything, but
Unfortunately.
similar, similar to I would say similar to that and other things. The saying is, the work is never finished, just abandoned. People use that for different, analogies, but that's kind of how it was with this. It's like, well, if I waited until I thought I was telling the story the best it could be told, and that I was presenting everything there was to present in a video, it would never happen. The video would never be finished. And so I finally said, okay, well, and this is what I'm going to do on this time. But I got a lot of input from Bob, and on making sure that I'm factually accurate in the things that I'm saying and so forth. But uh, it's neat, and it's hopefully it won't be too boring. I tried to keep the talking down to a little bit of a minimum, and make sure there's enough shooting and action in it, and good eye candy. But it's just neat to own the hand built prototype that is now the Nighthawk Customs Bob Marvel model. That's a $5,000 gun.
That is going to. I cannot wait for that video because I remember we talked about that last episode you were on. We actually had quite an extensive discussion because Weird being the 1911 fanboy that he is, had all these different questions. So, I mean,
Yep.
I'm really, really excited to see that.
Yeah. It's quite a gun, and it's a privilege to own it anyway. But then it's on top of that, it's quite a shooter too. So
Back on the long gun kick here. I don't know that we talked about this last episode. The Ruger PC9.
oh yeah,
Out of anybody I know, you've probably had the most experience with it because they can't keep them on the shelf at my local shop.
yep. Although we better say PC carbine, because I've
PC.
been getting spanked in the comments section of my video for calling it the PC9, which is not its rightful name.
Oh, okay. Because was the other one called the PC9?
Yes, the old one, the old military carbine was the PC9, I think. So
Okay.
this, and that's why I kept in it calling. Yeah, I was offended. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm terrible for that anyway. Anybody who watches my videos with any regularity knows that I can be a complete idiot when it comes to getting the name wrong, especially if it doesn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of letters and numbers strung together. But back to your question, please.
So I've never really had the chance. I mean, I've handled them. I didn't get a chance to switch out the magazine well, which is what I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
They're handy. They're really handy. You can take them down, right? Can you?
Yep.
So
yeah, it's a takedown, and I wish they would maybe they do under a different SKU, or maybe they'll offer it as an accessory. But I wish they had a backpack style case for it. For the takedown. It will. I have a 1022 takedown, and this will fit in that case.
okay.
You can tell it's not made for it, but it will fit.
So how are like the sights and stuff? Because that was the other thing I've had people asking about in terms of like optics or the iron sights, stuff like that.
I find the iron sights that are on it to be very good, very easy to pick up. It's one of those where you can bring that gun up to your shoulder, and the minute your cheek touches it, your eye is on. You've got a sight picture. It's a natural pointer, which not every long gun is. There's some you got to fiddle around with and go, where's my sight? This one's just a really natural pointer, and the sight picture is a good one. And I found it very easy to shoot accurately over long sessions. Shooting either a Glock 30 round magazine, or just shooting several magazines in a row. Not a lot of fatigue. So it's pretty light. But again, I think what adds to that is because the sight picture is so good, you're not putting a lot of your energy into trying to hold that sight picture. It's
Right.
just so natural. So I don't think I've put an optic on mine yet. I definitely have plans to do that. They do give you the Picatinny top, so you can put whatever, throw your favorite red dot right on it, or mount a scope, or whatever you want to do.
They did everything right, I think, with this gun. I'm just looking at a picture of it, and I'm like, I don't think they missed a thing. You got the threaded barrel, you got that little section of Picatinny rail on the fore end, so you can put like a white light or something on there.
Yep.
I mean, the changeable mag wells, you know, because you figure Ruger is famous for having their proprietary magazines like back in the day.
Right.
And
Right.
for them to be like, you know what, we just need to bite the bullet and let people be able to use Glock magazines if they want to. But if they want to use the Ruger mag, they can too. And it's ingenious.
Oh, it is, and that, big nod to them for doing that, because the firearms market is so competitive now, maybe more so than ever, and everybody is wanting to. A lot of times, they don't even want to acknowledge that the other companies exist, let alone provide any compatibility. So I'm sure that was not done without several heated conversations around conference tables at the Ruger base camp.
I
And
would
so
love to know the number of people that actually use the Ruger magazines.
I've used both. And I guess it comes down to, if you've got the Ruger, the PC9 is the one that it is compatible with, or the Security 9. I'm sorry. Um, it's the Security 9, and
Yeah,
what's the
large
other
series.
model? Yes. Um, course, which there are an abundant quantity out in the marketplace. So it was smart to make it compatible with that,
With all
versus
like,
the American.
well, with all like the Glock magazines and the aftermarkets and the 33 rounders, though,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you know, you can get those for dime a dozen nowadays. They've been around for so long.
right. And so making it Glock compatible was brilliant. And the other thing, it's an easy swap to make. Changing the magazine well is pretty simple and straightforward. And so it's not a lot of effort. It's not one of those, oh, I would change it over to be compatible, but it's such a bother. It's really not. Yeah, you're like you said, they did everything right. I have a hard time finding anything not to like about it. And then on top of all of that, the price point is
Yeah,
incredible.
650 MSRP.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think they're
So on the
selling for
street,
my.
you're going to find it. You're going to bucks in almost every gun store.
It's like 5.99 at my local shop,
Hmm.
maybe a little bit less. But reliability wise, no problems.
None with mine, but I certainly haven't battle tested it by any means. I've put probably a few hundred rounds through it. So, but oftentimes those early rounds are where you're going to see certain types of malfunctions manifest. Where things haven't, if things need to break in certain types of springs or certain types of mechanisms and things like that. Nothing, no malfunctions of any kind.
Nice. Yeah, I look forward to seeing more of your work with that one on there. I saw that on the channel, so I was like, I need to talk to him about that.
What I want to do is, I also have I have a 9 millimeter Stag Arms AR, that costs significantly more than this Ruger. And head, I want to do a head to head and say, is this, or, how does it stack up to something that costs 3 times as much or
Right.
more?
And before we wrap up, you got a few coming up right now. Here at the bottom, the Springfield XDS 9 Mod 2, and then there's a new Taurus single stack as well.
There is, yeah. I mentioned before that the Tauruses were, I was getting a lot of requests, for specific models, and some people just said do Tauruses. And so one of the ones that people wanted me to do was, um, the 709, the PT 709 Slim, which was the single stack small carry gun from Taurus. Well, that gun is now being phased out, and the G2S, S for Slim, is what's taking its place. And my understanding is that that's pretty new, like just starting to hit the stores. And I was lucky enough to get one of those, and I actually just did range work with it yesterday. Um, I don't want to give away too much, because I don't want all three of my viewers to not feel like they have to tune in later. But
We'll save
um,
that for the next show.
yeah, but I will say that I have favorable things to say about it. It's a good gun.
How was that Springfield XDS 9 Mod 2?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. It's I had the XDS in 45, the 3.3, when it first came out. So I was an early adopter to that, and that's going back. That's got to be more. Um, and when the 9mm came out, I did a review for Guns America on the 9mm. Actually, I think when they came out with the 4.0 9mm, and I compared it to the 3.3 9mm for that. And so I had some experience with it. I carried it for a while. I did a lot of shooting with it, and I liked it, but I didn't feel like I needed to own it. So it's like, well, I already have the 45,
Right.
and I like 45, and so I don't really need to invest in the same thing in 9mm. So I never did buy one. Well, then fast forward to what, I guess late last year when the Mod 2 came out for the 45 in the XDS, and I said, well, I do like this new grip style. Um, I have a larger XD compact, with that grip zone type style, and I like it. I think that it's more than just a marketing ploy. Um, so I'm interested in it, but 45, and I don't see why I need to buy a different XDS 45. So I was in that spot, right? So now this one comes, and it's the XDS 9mm with the Mod 2, that whole different grip texture. I was like, okay, so I meter and I don't have the Mod 2. So that makes sense that I should buy this one, So now there was ample reason. So I contacted my local gun store / crack dealer and said, hey, can you get me can you get me one of these? I know they're brand new. And he said, actually, yeah, I can. And so I said, do it. So I was able to get me one right away. And luckily it got it in the configuration that I wanted, and that is with the Ameriglow sights.
Oh,
So
perfect.
to mention them again, but it's got that same beautiful blacked out rear and bright glowing front with the tritium sight picture that I like. But I like the gun. I think the changes that they made are extremely favorable. Um, they make me shoot it better, and I think a lot of people will find that the same experience is for them, and also it's easier to manage the recoil, I
Right.
find, with the changes that they made.
Well, I cannot wait to see these videos go up on the page. So with that, we'll head into the wrap-up section and close out the show. Don't forget to shop Brownells using our affiliate link. Head to firearmsradio.tv and click the affiliate link in the upper right-hand corner. Be sure to go like Handgun Radio on Facebook and share it with your friends, and leave us a review on iTunes. Listen to all the great shows on the Firearms Radio Network, and be sure to check out the Firearms Radio Network on YouTube. And Dave, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing
Always
all your info as well. And where can people find you and your stuff?
Well, you can find me on YouTube, and you can also now find me on full30.com.
Perfect.
And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram and places like that.
And Guns America.
That's true, Guns America. And oh, by the way, if you don't mind me doing one other quick little plug,
Yeah, go ahead.
um, the American Handgunner magazine, the FMG publication, is just putting out their annual concealed carry edition. It's one of those. They do half a dozen or so special annual editions. Should be hitting the newsstand soon, and I have a small article in there, so
I
it's
will be looking for that.
nice to see the Just an Opinion moniker on an actual printed page.
That's excellent. Yeah, I did. That's awesome. I'll make sure I look for
Yeah.
that next time I head to the store here. Perfect. Well, there will be links in the show notes to all these. So thank you again very much. It was a really great time. I know we're not usually recording in the morning, but had a good time.
Thanks, Ryan. Always a pleasure.
And until next week, have fun and safe shooting.